What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for July 21st, 2023. I am Graham G. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. Pretty good show on Friday night. I did not watch this live. I watched the Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor show instead. But catching up after the fact, this was a pretty good show. It breezed by. Some really good matches, segments, set up for SummerSlam. Headlined by the contract signing, rules of engagement, whatever the fuck you want to call it, with the Bloodline, Roman Reigns, and Jey Uso. Good segment there. We had a very good non-title match between Austin Theory and Santos Escobar. Quite random, which I'll get to. I will address that in a moment. The episode is all over the place. We had Austin Theory potentially facing his next potential number one contender in Santos Escobar. We had that rules of engagement stuff I just mentioned. A North American Championship title defense from Dominik Mysterio against the SmackDown superstar. A really good Charlotte Flair IYO SKY segment, and a good four-way, arguably won by the wrong person. I say arguably, it's pretty obvious that it was wrong. It was won by the wrong person, but we'll get into it. Good show, though. I did enjoy the show. Some good action. They gave these matches more time than I was expecting. So it wasn't one of those shows. We have a lot of SmackDowns where they attempt to throw in as much as they can in that 2 hours. And we get like 6 or 7 matches, and most of them are like 2 minutes, and they don't really fucking mean anything. I'm glad they didn't do that this week, and they gave these matches time. And as a result, Escobar Theory, Charlotte IYO, that four-way, were all really good. Dominic and Butch was probably the weakest match of the bunch, but, you know, it was still solid. And the main event segment was quite good. So, a lot of exposure for NXT talents as well on this show. This episode emanated from Orlando, obviously not far from where NXT, hails from, obviously, from the Performance Center. So, a lot of NXT talent on the show. We saw Dragon Lee in the audience. Wesley, who just lost the North American Championship actually on Tuesday to Dominik Mysterio. We saw Tony D'Angelo backstage with Stax, the Creed brothers as well. So they had a lot of talent on this show, backstage and in the audience, which was pretty cool. Great exposure for NXT. You love to see it. We open up the show with really what everyone was talking about. Like I said, they made the match official for SummerSlam, Jey Uso and Roman Reigns. We had a North American title defense. We had NXT stars all over the show. But really what people were talking about coming out of this episode and trending all night long, well after SmackDown was over, was the four-way match, specifically LA Knight losing. So the winner of this match would advance in the United States Championship Invitational to face Santos Escobar next week. Now, as soon as Santos won last week, I was skeptical LA Knight was winning here. We still don't know if Knight is supposed to be a babyface or a heel, because he really hasn't had a chance. I mean, he's obviously over as a babyface. They already have a lot of baby faces on SmackDown, including the 3 in this match, Rey Mysterio, Cameron Grimes, and Sheamus. None are as over as LA Knight right now, obviously. But they have a lot of baby faces on SmackDown. But we really haven't seen LA Knight do anything heelish since before Money in the Bank. He was basically a babyface in Money in the Bank. He cut a promo last week like a babyface. He attacked Hit Row, which I don't know if is WWE canon or not, because it was a pre-show segment on their YouTube channel. But Hit Row's a heel group, and you would think, okay, he's a babyface. But we still don't quite know. But as soon as Escobar won last week, I said, I'm pretty sure I'm not expecting Knight to win. I would have loved to have seen Knight win here and go on to beat Escobar. And again, if he was supposed to be a heel, then okay, that makes sense. But if he's supposed to be a babyface, then maybe not. Now, I know a babyface ended up winning this match, but it makes more storyline sense. Now, if it was fucking Cameron Grimes or Sheamus, I would say, okay, that's bizarre. Why not just have LA Knight win? It wasn't either of those guys. It was Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio won this match. Very fun four-way, as you would expect. A really good way to open the show. Crowd was into it. LA Knight was incredibly over again this week. And he got mic time on his way to the ring. Now, the question is this. First of all, I'm not upset at the outcome, but I am a little disappointed. So I'm kind of 2 minds of the thing. Am I upset that LA Knight did not win? Yes. Do I think they have an actual plan in place for him? No. Do I think they can rebound from this? Yes. Now, I'm not giving the company any credit here. I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt, because they've done this a lot in the last number of months, really since the beginning of 2023. People have said, they have plans for Knight, so don't worry about him. I saw someone tweet this last night. Don't worry about him losing to Bray Wyatt at the Royal Rumble. It's going to be okay. He has no plans on the road to WrestleMania, but it's okay. They're going to push him out to WrestleMania. It's okay that they haven't done anything with him since before the draft, because it's okay. Wait until after the draft. All right. Didn't do anything at the draft either, or after the draft or whatever. It's okay. We'll push him at Money in the Bank. He loses. All right, we'll push him after Money in the Bank. And he still is not the number one contender to the United States Championship. I thought he might face Theory for the U.S. title. That's obviously not happening right now. I thought he might face Logan Paul. That's obviously not happening right now. Then what the fuck do you do with this guy in the meantime is my issue. My issue is not the fact that he lost. It's more so the question of what the fuck do you do to keep this guy on TV rolling, momentum strong in the meantime. I even said again, like I said last week and earlier this week on hashtag, I'm pretty confident there's a chance that Knight will lose here because they're saving him until after they're done with whatever they're doing with Escobar and Rey Mysterio. I think that's lost in this whole thing with people being angry about Knight losing. We're getting fucking Rey Mysterio against Santos Escobar next week. A dream match for many. And if not a dream match, pretty damn close. A match many years in the making. A match many of us thought we would never see. Either Rey would retire before then or Santos would never get the fucking call up. But obviously neither of those things happened. And he's on SmackDown. Rey's still around. They're in the LWO together. I like this. I think this is cool. No pun intended. I don't know when Carlito's coming in. If he's going to be part of the group, I don't really know. Maybe this ties into that. Because the LWO has been kind of on the back burner for a couple of months now. I mean, Santos was in Money in the Bank, but they haven't really done a whole lot since the Bad Bunny Damian Priest match at Backlash, where they got a massive reaction. They've been on SmackDown since then, but not a whole lot. So anyway, I'm not upset at Rey Mysterio winning because we're getting Rey and Santos next week, and maybe this is one step closer to Santos turning heel. And at this point, I'm not convinced that Santos is going to be beating Rey next week. I'm kind of convinced Rey's going to be beating Santos. They made it quite obvious when Santos faced Austin Theory later on in the show in a non-title match. Now, I don't know why the fuck they would do that if Santos was going to be winning that match next week to face Theory in a future episode of SmackDown, because to me it makes it more obvious that he's not winning the championship. And I don't know, I just thought it was silly because that was a competitive match. It was a really good match. Maybe they're just getting it out of the way because he's not winning next week. I don't really know, but I'm kind of convinced that Rey's going to be beating Santos. We've already seen Theory and Rey, albeit not for the United States Championship, but they did do the match on the Raw after WrestleMania. I think Rey's beating Santos, and then he loses to Theory, probably with Santos going heel. Honestly, and this is the way that I see it, again, not to give the company credit, but this is what I would do. Knight has gotten over so much that you need to turn him babyface. You need to turn somebody heel. Grimes is better off as a babyface for now. Brawling Brutes are a good babyface faction, and you have a lot of other babyfaces that were in the match last week. We have Bobby Lashley. I don't know if he's a heel yet or a face. We saw Bobby again on the show, by the way, talking to Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams backstage. Last week it was Street Profits. This week it was Carmelo and Trick. So, interesting to know. But you got to turn somebody heel, and Santos would make the most sense. Now, the LWO, I think, is a really over group, but they might already be breaking up. I mean, they might already be breaking up as quickly as the original incarnation of the group from WCW. I don't know exactly how long they lasted. I know it wasn't more than a couple of months. This might be the exact same thing if they're going to be turning Santos heel soon, and that's perfectly fine with me, because they need another babyface in Santos' spot, and that would be LA Knight. Probably higher up on the card than Santos was as a babyface. But anyway, I'm not extremely upset at this. I'm just a little bit baffled, because Triple H did say during the press conference coming into Money in the Bank, oh, good things come to those who wait, or whatever the fucking expression that he used was. If they don't do anything with LA Knight coming out of this, now listen, if he faces Theory at a later point, that's fine, but they got to keep the guy on TV in the meantime having matches. It can't just disappear until the time comes for him to face Theory. If Theory loses the championship to Rey or Santos, that's pretty stupid. I mean, to me at this point, it's pretty evident it's got to be LA Knight. That is the perfect spot for him right now. Whatever Rey and Santos are going to be doing together, seemingly, does not need the United States Championship. So, just my 2 cents. A really good opener, though. We had Charlotte Flair versus IYO SKY 1-on-1 up next. Another really good match. I was worried that it would be cut short after the Shotzi appearance on the Titantron. She was shown. We didn't see her full shaved head, but I was a little bit worried, after that happened and Bayley got distracted, Charlotte would take advantage and beat IYO. No, Bayley walked to the back, which allowed IYO and Charlotte to have just a regular match. It went on for several more minutes after that, and they had a really good match. I feel like this was the match they should have had. I mean, it started a little bit rough, but it turned into a good match down the stretch. This was the match I was hoping for out of them 3 years ago. Because remember, they had their first ever match one-on-one on NXT. When Charlotte Flair became NXT Women's Champion, they had an NXT Women's Championship match on TV that ended in a DQ, I believe. IYO actually beat Charlotte for that championship back in 2020. Now, she didn't pin Charlotte, But Charlotte lost the championship to IYO in that triple threat at In Your House that year by pinning Rhea Ripley. So they have unfinished business. Charlotte won here again. IYO looked incredible in defeat. If she ends up cashing in successfully, this doesn't really matter. I don't want them to get into the habit of beating IYO like they have every fucking former Miss Money in the Bank, or Mr. Money in the Bank, really. The winners of the women's Money in the Bank ladder match really haven't held the briefcase long enough to be booked poorly before they cash in, aside from Carmella. But I hope she doesn't lose too much en route to, or ahead of eventually cashing in, hopefully successfully. Maybe even as soon as SummerSlam. I remain pretty confident that's probably the direction they're going into this point. Santos Escobar and Theory, like I mentioned, a non-title match made official after they brawled around ringside during the opener. Because Theory was attempting to interfere in that four-way, Escobar thwarted him. Pierce made the match official. Non-title, though, Theory said. I don't want to put the championship on the line. That would have been even dumber. If the championship was on the line here against the man that isn't even the number one contender yet, that would have been pretty fucking dumb. But like I said, they had a pretty good match, though. Theory's reign has been a complete afterthought in recent months. But when his championship is on the line, he goes in there and has a really good match. Like, that's why I'm not completely soured on Theory. I mean, the guy's a fucking loser at this point. Not in terms of winning and losing, but in terms of how he's booked and portrayed. But like the match with Sheamus 2 weeks ago on SmackDown and MSG, a really good match. This, a really good match. The three-way at Backlash with Bobby and Bronson, really good match. So, I mean, the Cena match wasn't great. The Jey Uso match was whatever. But he still goes in there and has really good matches most of the time. This was no exception. Escobar winning clean, like I said earlier, kind of makes it obvious to me that he's not winning the championship. I don't think, or even going to be contending for it. I just don't know why you would do this match before then if he was going to be beating Rey next week and potentially winning the championship. Just kind of pointless. North American Championship defense, Dominik Mysterio, who was interrupted backstage beforehand by Butch, which is how this match was made official. Even Shawn Michaels was on the show this week. He showed up backstage, sanctioned the match because Dominic said, there's no one from NXT to make this match official. Well, that didn't stop WWE from making Solo Sikoa against, fucking Madcap Moss, official for the North American Championship last year. Because remember, the exact same thing happened last fall. Solo won the North American Championship on NXT that week, and then 3 days later on SmackDown, he was defending it against Madcap Moss. I guess those were technically later made unofficial because Shawn did not sanction the initial match or the Madcap Moss match. Shawn did sanction that match on Tuesday as well as this one, so I guess these are official, and Dominic doesn't have to relinquish the championship. If he does, that would be pretty fucking dumb. I hope he does not do that. I don't know what happens to the Great American Bash match. I guess he's going to be facing Mustafa Ali. Kind of weird, but whatever. Match was fine. This was a solid match, well worked. Kind of a bit of too much interference from Rhea Ripley, and then we had Pretty Deadly at ringside. Ridge Holland was there, so too much interference for my liking, but it was well done. Pretty Deadly in the because one of them's hurt right now. One of them was legitimately hurt. I did not think that was a real injury on SmackDown Lowdown last week, but I guess I was wrong. They were in the wheelchair and they just ran off with their broken arm or whatever. Hopefully he's not out for too long. I don't know if it was Elton or Prince. I don't remember, but still. Good match here. Dominic wins as you would probably expect. And then the main event segment, the Rules of Engagement with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. Solid stuff here. They kind of went over what this match means to them at SummerSlam. Whoever wins becomes the tribal chief. It's going to be tribal combat, blah, blah, blah. The elders will be involved, blah, blah, blah. So I thought it was a good segment. Not their strongest segment by far. I didn't really know exactly, I'm thinking, is it going to be anything goes at the pay-per-view? But they didn't say that during as the show went off the air, I was trying to clarify with what the commentator said. They made no mention, I don't believe anyway, unless I missed it, of the match being anything goes. They just said it's going to be tribal combat. But what the fuck does that even mean? So hopefully we get clarification next week. We got 2 SmackDowns left before the pay-per-view next week, and then the week after that is a day before SmackDown, or rather SummerSlam. But still, hopefully they can make that clear and kind of clear up what exactly that means. Is it going to be no holds barred? Does that simply just mean that whoever wins becomes the tribal chief? I don't really know. But still, I thought this was good stuff. Not the strongest, most compelling segment together, but it was well done. That was SmackDown in a nutshell from last night. Pretty good show, like I said. I was kind of, the LA Knight stuff dominated Twitter last night as well as early this morning. That's more of a wait-and-see thing. I'm not going to say that it wasn't dumb that he lost here, because it definitely was dumb. I mean, he's so over, why not just run with it? But I'm curious to see where the Knight and, not Knight, but the Santos and Rey stuff goes. I think they will make a story out of that. tell a story with them in the semifinals. They probably wouldn't have had a match one-on-one otherwise, unless it was a number one contenders match. So hopefully that can kind of set forward their feud, give them something to do. They've been on the back burner for a few months now, specifically Rey. Hasn't done a whole lot. Give them something to do, and then push LA Knight and have him win the United States Championship. Maybe I'm an optimistic fool, but I guess we'll find out in due time. But like I said, Charlotte, IYO, good match. Escobar, in theory, good match. Even Dominic and Butch was well wrestled, and the main event segment was good. Less is more with this edition of SmackDown. I think SmackDown thrives when they follow that format, and that's exactly what we got this week. So next week, I think they only advertised 2 matches, I think. And also they made Bianca, Charlotte, and Asuka official for SummerSlam, and Asuka attacked Charlotte following her match with IYO. But anyway, so that's official for SummerSlam. They added that to the card on Twitter last night, so not even on SmackDown did they wait for it. They just announced it on Twitter earlier in the day. But I think next week, in addition to Rey and Santos, they're going to be doing Karrion Kross against Carl Anderson, for anyone who gives a shit. But that's happening next week on SmackDown. Thank you guys for checking out my SmackDown review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Should have a SmackDown Lowdown review up at some point this weekend, so check that out. As well as hopefully a Collision review and a Dark Side of the Ring review at some point as well. So enjoy the rest of the weekend. I'm Graham G. Matthews. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have a great one. Again, I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.